Alright, so yesterday we learned to model doors and windows in SketchUp. In today's video, we're going to take that information and use it to model a house in SketchUp. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so just as a reminder, in this series, even though we're doing it in the free version of SketchUp, you can also do this with the Pro desktop version. I'm going to be saying the keyboard shortcuts out loud, and the keys are going to be pretty much the same. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to use the line tool. So we're going to tap the L key, and then we're just going to start roughing out the base of our house. So in this case, I'm assuming this house is going to be kind of an L shape. It's going to be 40 feet long by 40 feet wide. And then it's going to have two wings that are like 20 feet. And so for an example size, this ought to work pretty well for us. So notice how I'm just drawing lines in here until I get a flat plane like this. So that's going to give me the footprint of my house, and that's usually where we start. Now from here, there's usually two options. So the first option is we can start giving our house thickness of walls and then extrude those up. In this case, we're not going to worry too much about that because we just want to model a simple house with this kind of like outline right here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to extrude this house up. So to do that, we're going to tap the P key on the keyboard in order to activate the push-pull tool. And in this case, we want to extrude this up, maybe we'll call it 11 feet, something like that. So what that's done is that's given us kind of the base look of our house. Well, now what I need to do is I need to add the roof. And so there's a couple different ways that we can do this. We're going to start by using sticky geometry in order to create the roof. So to do that, I'm going to activate the line tool. And what I want to do is I want to find the midpoint right here. And I want to draw. So I've single clicked and now I'm holding the shift key in order to lock this to the green axis. And I'm going to click again. What that's going to do is that's going to draw a line to this point. Then we're going to draw a line to this point right here. So what that's done is that's split this up into two halves, right? Well, remember, because this is all connected geometry, that means that we can come in here and we can select these two lines. Well, if we use the move tool by tapping the M key and then single clicking, notice how that's going to auto fold that geometry upward, just like this. So in this case, we're going to assume that this is going to go up, maybe we'll call it 7 feet right here. So I'm just going to type in a value of 7 feet and we're good to go. So what that's done is that's come in here and that's generated basically the shape or the footprint of our house. But we've got a few issues that we need to solve. The first is that the roof isn't very realistic right now, right? Because roofs really overhang a little bit off the edges and off the fronts. And right now it's just kind of like this shape. It almost looks like it took the roof off of a house. So what we want to do is we want to select these front two edges by doing a click and then a shift click. And then we're just going to tap the F key to activate the offset tool. And in this case, I'm going to offset this to a thickness of 6 inches right here. So when we do that, that's going to allow us to fill this in order to create a profile that we can use for our roof. But we want to go ahead and we want to add an overhang. So the nice thing about SketchUp is what it's going to do is if you single click on this edge and then move your mouse out, it's going to give you the option to extend this edge to give it kind of an overhang. So in this case, I'm going to type in a value of 12 inches, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here, 12 inches, and then I'll close this in. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to do 12 inches here, or we're going to do 12 inches here. And make sure that you're actually doing it to 12 inches so that this is kind of uniform. But now what we have is we have this roof. And so we have a couple different options at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this roof and I'm going to make it a group. That way, when I extrude this out, the geometry isn't merging with the rest of everything in this model. And so what we need this to do is we need this to follow along this edge right here. And so what we could do is we could push pull this out and then push pull it from the other side and do some intersecting of geometry. It gets all very complicated. What we can do instead though is I'm going to double click in this group and I'm going to draw a line from here to here and from here to here like this. And so what that's going to do is that's going to give me a path that I can select. So I'm going to select this edge and this edge. So you should have two objects selected. You can go into your entity info and make sure that you have two objects selected right here. But now I want to activate the Follow Me tool, which for the free version of SketchUp, you just want to click and hold in here because I don't think it has a shortcut associated with it. You want to click on this option for Follow Me. There's something similar in the large tool set inside of the desktop version of SketchUp. And so remember that we have these two edges selected already, and then we activated this tool. Well, now I'm going to click right here, and what this is going to do is this is going to extrude that surface out, and it's going to follow along with this path. So now I've got a much more realistic looking roof on my house. And so I also want to use the push-pull tool by tapping P, and I want to extrude this 12 inches over right here. And then remember that you can double click in order to repeat the last distance that you used for a tool. So I just double clicked over here. So this is now overhung on either side. So now what we want to do is we want to add some doors and windows. And so that's partially why we covered doors and windows yesterday. But now what we want to do is we want to start by drawing the opening for our door. So in this case, I'm just going to have a simple door. It's just going to come off of this point right here, and it's going to be 7 feet high. And we want the whole thing to be 3 feet wide. So I'm going to draw a line that's 1 foot 6 inches this way, and then 3 feet this way so that it's centered. That is going to allow me to draw my door opening right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase out the material that's right here. Now, if you didn't follow along yesterday, you could come in here and you can model a door and window. Go watch that video to learn how to do that. Or what we're going to do is we're going to click into our model preferences, and we're going to import that door and window that we created yesterday. So I'm going to do an import, and I'm going to import from Trimble Connect because that's where this was saved. So we're going to go into Trimble Connect. I'm going to go into my folder, and I'm going to find my door and window. In this case, it's this one right here. And so what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to import this as a component. So I'm going to click on the option to import as component, and that's going to bring that into my model. And I can kind of click right here in order to place this. And so remember that that had my doors and windows that I created yesterday. Well, I'm going to right click in it and I'm going to explode it right here because these just came in all as one component and I need to edit them separately. But what I want to do is I want to start by taking my door, making it a group right here. And actually you could probably make it a component just in case. So we're going to call this door dash 3 foot by 7 foot. Click on OK. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the midpoint or maybe the front point of my door right here. I'm going to click and I'm going to move this so that it aligns with my opening. And in this case, my opening size is slightly different. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to move it over. Notice when I move it over, it's going to adjust the geometry that's in here. So I can move that until it aligns with the outside of my door right here. And I can move it so that it aligns with the top of my door right here. So now I have a door in the front of my house. Now I want to do the same thing with some windows. So I've got this window right here, which I'm going to measure real quick. So I'm just going to use the tape measure tool. And so this turned out to be 3 feet by 4 feet. So we're going to model a 3 foot by 4 foot opening in here. And so I'm going to start by creating a guide. So I'm going to come in here with the tape measure tool, making sure that the little plus button is showing up. If it's not, tap the control key. But I'm going to draw a guide up to this point right here. And I'm going to draw a guide down 4 feet. And now I'm going to add my window opening. So I'm assuming that I'm going to have maybe like 2 window openings. So I'm actually going to take this bottom line and I'm going to divide it so that I can see those locations right here. That's going to give me something to inference to. So now I've got this edge right here and I can use the line tool up above it in order to rough out my window opening. So in this case, it's going to be 1 foot 6, 3 feet, just like this. And you can actually take this and use the move tool in copy mode. So select it, tap the M key, tap control to make sure you're in copy mode, and you can make a copy just like this. And so I want to align that with this location right here. So now I can delete out these faces. And what I want to do is I want to take this window right here. I want to right click and I want to make it a component. And we're just going to call this window vertical 3 foot by 4 foot, and hit OK. And so in this case, what I want to do is I want to start by rotating this right here. And I want to move this so that this point behind the trim aligns with my opening. And to get it a little closer, I might just move it on the red axis right here to start. So I find just moving things along the axes makes aligning them a little bit easier when I first do that. But then notice if I select this point right here with the move tool active, so tap M, single click, and then move your mouse, you can align that with this opening right here. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with this location right here. But I'm going to use a little trick for aligning this where I activate the move tool, but I'm going to set my base point right here. So notice how when I set my base point off my object, it's a lot easier to make sure that this is moving along one plane and it's getting put in position right here. But I can just move it so that it's aligned with this point right here. So now I've got these two windows over here. And then I could do the same thing over here. And maybe I'll leave these guides in here for a second. So again, I'm just going to create a guide that aligns right here, a guide that aligns right here. And in this case, maybe we'll use this vertical sliding window. And one thing I might do with this vertical sliding window real quick is just add some trim. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle across the top here, tap the F key to offset it, and offset it to 4 inches. So now I've got this horizontal sliding window, and I'm just going to make it a component. So I'm going to select it, right click and click make component. I'm going to call this window horizontal 3 foot by 4 foot. And now we're just going to do the same thing, right? We're going to find our points by dividing this. We'll inference up here and draw our window opening. We'll copy this using the move tool in copy mode, and we'll align it to this point. So now all we have to do is just take this window and align it. So I'm just going to take this point, move that over here. And remember, it's a component, so we can go ahead and move this over here and then extrude our trim out a little bit, maybe like 5/8 of an inch or something like that. So now we've got doors and windows on our house. And so I may come in here and add some more doors and windows, but for the moment, we're going to go ahead and call this good. So we'll go ahead and move this door out of the way for right now. But what I want to do is I want to add my materials. And so you can find materials in this version of SketchUp over here in materials. And it's very similar in the desktop version of SketchUp. Again, you just tap the B key and then use the materials palette over here to add materials. But you can click on this little search button right here and you can find things like roofing. And so what I want to do is I want to add shingles to this object. But notice how if I click on this, right now it's a little bit problematic because it puts it on the outside of this group, which isn't necessarily what we want. So I'm going to undo this. I'm going to double click into the group and make sure that I'm actually applying materials to the faces. So I'm going to select the shingle material and I'm going to apply it to this roof right here. So now we've got our shingle material applied. Now I want to apply some siding. So we can go to the brick cladding and siding right here, and we can pick one of these siding options or one of the brick and stone options. So let's say, for example, that we wanted maybe like stone on the outside of our house. Well, we can select stone and we can click on these faces in order to apply the stone material like this. And so one thing that I don't like about this though is I don't like having the stone very uniform on here. So what I want to do is I want to split this face so that I have like a stone wainscot and siding up above. And so the way that I'm going to do that is, first off, one of the things that would have been smart that I didn't do would have been setting up the trim so that you can toggle it off with a tag. Maybe we'll talk about something like that in a future video. But for now, I'm just going to double click in here, right click and hide so that I can see the bottoms of my windows. And so what I want to do is I could come in here and I could draw a line, right, all the way around the outside to kind of like split this up like this so that I have separate materials in here. I don't like that though because it's going to take a lot of extra time, especially because I already have this drawn on the bottom. So what I can do is I can double click on this face, that's going to select all the connected edges that are in here associated with the face. And then I can do a shift click in order to deselect the face. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move tool in copy mode, and I'm going to copy those edges up. And so notice when I copy those edges up, what that's going to do is that's going to take this edge and it's going to put it all the way around the outside of my house. Well, when it does that, what it does is it's automatically splitting this because it's basically drawing a line across this surface. And we can just erase this one right here. And so what I want to do is I want to leave these as this stone material, but I want to apply a siding material up above. So I'm just going to click on this. I'm going to go around here and I'm just going to click in order to apply this siding material on this house. And then I'm going to come over into my tray and I'm going to do an unhide all like this. In the pro version of SketchUp, you just go up to edit, unhide all in order to unhide all of these. And so from here, you could get as complex as you like. You could add like a stone sill on the top of this. You could add more detail there, but this should be good enough to get you started. I'll link to tomorrow's video on this page as soon as it's released, but leave a comment below. Let me know if you have any questions, if you got stuck on anything. I just love having that conversation with you guys. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, there's going to be a lot more videos in this series. I'd love to have you along for the ride. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.